World Cup season is upon us, and as we anticipate watching nations from all over the world battle for the biggest prize on the biggest stage in world football, we also have to remember that some national teams will not be featuring. Of course, the majority of countries that miss out on the World Cup miss out because they fail to qualify, but there are actually a few that don't feature simply because they can't. They have been banned. In almost every World Cup tournament since 1950, at least one country has been banned from participating for different reasons, and in this video we'll be looking at some of those countries and the reasons why they were banned. Here are 7 countries that have been banned from playing in the World Cup. Number 1. Germany and Japan, 1950. The Second World War occurred between 1939 and 1945, and because of that, 2 World Cup tournaments could not be held. When the competition returned in 1950, FIFA decided to punish the major players in the war by banning both Germany and Japan from featuring in the tournament. Considering the fact that they did that, it's surprising that they allowed Italy, who are one of the Axis powers, to feature in the 1950 tournament, but what do we know? Number 2. South Africa, 1961 to 1992. South Africa was banned from entering the World Cup for more than 3 decades, basically because of apartheid. The racism in the country back then was rife. Apparently their local leagues were divided by race, and white clubs were seen and treated as superior to the black ones. So in 1961, FIFA banned them and expelled them from the footballing family. They were reinstated in 1993, but the leaders of the country at the time showed that they hadn't learned their lesson when they decided that they would send an all-white team to England 66 and an all-black team to Mexico 70, just so both races didn't mix. So FIFA decided not to admit them into that tournament and then banned them again. They remained banned until 1992 when South Africa was nearing independence. All political prisoners had been released and an open negotiation process of political parties commenced. So FIFA lifted the ban and reinstated them, so they played in the World Cup qualifiers for the 94 tournament but lost out to Nigeria. In 1998, however, South Africa went on to qualify and make their first ever appearance at a FIFA World Cup tournament. 12 years later, they were hosts, and till date, that remains the last time they've qualified for the World Cup. Number 3. Mexico, 1990. Mexico has hosted the FIFA World Cup twice and will be hosting again in 4 years' time, but just after the last time they hosted, which was in 1986, they committed a grave offence which saw them banned for 2 years. They were found guilty of fielding overage players in the qualifying games for the 1988 Olympics, and for that, FIFA banned them for 2 years, which meant that they missed Italia 90, but they were back in time for USA 94 and have qualified for every World Cup tournament since then. Number 4. Chile, 1994. Chile hosted the World Cup in 1962 and finished 3rd on home soil, but 32 years later they were not allowed to enter the competition. Why? Because of a man named Roberto Rojas. Rojas played as a goalkeeper for the Chilean team back in the day, and he was their starting keeper as they approached the 1990 World Cup. Chile were a goal down in the second half of a qualifying match against Brazil, which they needed to win. They couldn't afford a loss or even a draw, if not they would miss out on the 1990 tournament. They didn't want to miss out, obviously, especially Rojas. With about 20 minutes to go in the game, which is being played at the Maracanã, a flare was thrown onto the pitch and Rojas immediately went down. The firework was thrown by a Brazilian fan and it appeared to have hit the Chilean goalkeeper. His head was blooded. He was stretchered out of the pitch and his teammates walked off with him as they claimed the playing conditions were not safe for them to continue, so the match was abandoned. Rojas was smooth, but he just wasn't slick enough for video evidence. Tapes of the incident were later reviewed and it was discovered that the firework in fact didn't even touch the goalkeeper. So how did his bloody head come about? He inflicted the wound on himself with a razor he hid in his glove. After that discovery, instead of replaying the match, FIFA just handed Brazil a 2-0 win, but that wasn't all. They were then banned for 1 tournament, which meant that they missed out on the 1994 edition in the US. Roberto Rojas, however, was banned for life, along with the team doctor and the coach. Number 5. Myanmar, 2006. Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, is an Asian country that has never qualified for the World Cup since it stopped being a part of the United Kingdom, but that didn't stop them from getting banned by FIFA anyway. They were scheduled to play a World Cup qualifying match in Iran in 2002, but they withdrew. So FIFA fined them £20,000 and banned them from competing in the 2006 World Cup in Germany. That was the 3rd time the country withdrew from qualification matches, so yeah, FIFA had it up to here. Since that fine and ban, Myanmar have never pulled out from qualification again. They are still yet to qualify for the World Cup proper, but they always show up for the qualifiers. Apparently, these bans do work. Number 6. Russia 2022. Surely this is one we're all very familiar with. We saw everything unfold. Following their invasion of Ukraine, Russia has basically been ostracized by most of the globe, and we saw huge effects of that in the world of football. A Russian club owner was basically forced out of the UK. Russian football clubs were immediately kicked out of European competitions. The Champions League final was moved away from Russia, where it was scheduled to be held, and of course, the Russian national teams were banned and suspended by FIFA. Russia, who had already reached the playoffs, were 2 games away from qualifying for their 3rd straight World Cup, but were effectively booted out. So, now the hosts of the last World Cup tournament won't be featuring in this year's tournament. Number 7. Ecuador 2022. Now, this one has not actually been made official, but we're putting it on the list today because at this rate, it might very well happen. Ecuador, who have already qualified for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, could very well be banned from appearing. Why? Because of a 20-something-year-old defender named Byron Castillo. We say 20-something because at this point, nobody knows what Castillo's real age is. Back in 2017, Castillo was suspended from the Ecuadorian national teams after he was accused of falsifying his birth documents. But in April of 2021, after investigations, Castillo's Ecuadorian nationality was confirmed and he was allowed to play for the country. However, the following month, Chile went to FIFA with a complaint saying that Castillo was born in July 1995 in Colombia and not in November 1998 in Ecuador as his documents stated. After looking into it for about a month, FIFA finally dismissed Chile's complaint in June and Ecuador's spot in the World Cup was confirmed. But there are now new developments in the case which could lead to Ecuador being banned from the showdown, which is due to kick off in a couple of months. In September 2022, the Daily Mail published an audio recording which they obtained from Marca. In the recording, Castillo himself allegedly admits to being born in Colombia and illegitimately entering Ecuador years later. He is also said to have confirmed that he was born in 1995 and not 1998. The Daily Mail went on to publish Castillo's Ecuadorian and Colombian birth certificates to point out the discrepancies in his date of birth, place of birth, and even his name. You would think that Castillo would suffer some consequences on his own, but reports say that that recording is from an interview between the player and the Ecuadorian Football Association, who decided to keep it all hush-hush, so they are very well in on it, it would appear. Following these new developments, FIFA's Appeals Commission decided to reopen investigations and a hearing began on the 15th of September. The final verdict will be delivered in October, a month before the World Cup. If it is proven, Ecuador could very well be disqualified from the 2022 World Cup, so we all have to keep our eyes on this one and see how it develops. But which one of these banned stories do you find more intriguing? The one with the self-harming Chilean goalkeeper or the one with the illegitimate Ecuadorian defender? Let us know in the comments.